Hey, good afternoon, John. Donovan.
Hey, Marty Keller, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Well,
John, John and I are the Intentional Living guys. This is our weekly podcast where we discuss issues that have to do with breaking patterns of behavior that we find ourselves sometimes stuck in. We happen often have the experience of I want to be doing something differently from what my compulsion uh, pushes me to do anyway. It
yeah,
it may be uh, I don't want to continue an argument I'm in, or I want to back down from a confrontation, and there's a part of me that says no, keep going. We're gonna do it anyway. Get in trouble and might even find some kind of emotional or even physical distress from that. So all human beings have this challenge that we find behaviors that seem mystifying to us, to our conscious minds, and so the intentional living process is designed to help all of us start to get to the bottom of all that, what's really going on, and see it.
mhm,
And having seen what's truly going on, now we have some options. We have some capacity to make different choices. Can't do it until we see it. And so that's what the intentional living process basically is designed to do. And in this podcast, we talk about different elements of this process. Sometimes we go into a little bit about the how the process works itself. Sometimes we talk about underlying principles or ideas that help illuminate how the process works. And today we want to talk a little bit more, picking up on what we talked about last week. Last week we talked about projection and what that how that can actually be a gift to us. And projection being I see something outside of myself that causes some kind of emotional response that's above and beyond the what's actually going on. You
right,
you didn't use this in our last talk, but you've often talked about the crumbs on the toast, or the
right,
crumbs on the butter,
yeah,
something
yeah,
minor that triggers a major response that's like and that's out of proportion to what's actually happening in the moment. And
right,
this is all unhealed childhood trauma that is feeling triggered by something that's going on because it's like a
hmm,
reminder of something that happened to us when we were 1, 2, 3, 4 years old that felt like a threat. And that feeling that we got by that threat never got healed. Our parents didn't know, perhaps they didn't know we even had that feeling of threat. And whether they did or not, we didn't feel that it was healed. And so if unhealed trauma gets stuck in our psyches. It literally gets stuck in our brain structure, and we develop defenses against it. And then we find ourselves run by those defenses helplessly for years and years and years until something happens and we get a chance to take a look at it. And the accountability practice is the way I learned to take a look at what was going on inside and to become freed from the compulsion and to learn to actually befriend these things that for a long time I hated in myself.
yeah,
But we want to talk a little bit today about that process of learning to identify the obstacles to the life that we want, and instead of fighting them, what I instead of enduring what I call the inner civil war, learning to befriend them.
yeah,
You, in our last conversation, you actually referred to something that you had said before, and maybe we could start there. You talked about I revel in my character defects, and
yeah,
I remember the first time I heard you say this was 5, 6 years ago, and
yeah,
it it both threw me back, and at the same time, I had this intuitive hit that was yes, yes.
yeah,
Even
yeah,
even though at the moment, logically, it says, What the hell are you talking about?" So, what the hell were you talking about?
yeah. I remember that moment where I said I was reveling in my character defects and your response to it. Can you go ahead and make me co-host as I'm talking here? And I'm
Sure.
I'm gonna, as he's doing that, I'm gonna bring up the board work and identify what we mean by obstacles and obstacles to what. So um, just go ahead and make me co-host, and then get on the board. But one of the things that happened to me early in my recovery is that I heard the phrase, "This is a cunning, baffling, powerful disease." Um, um, and I'm co-host now.
Yes.
Okay. And I asked the question, what's cunning, baffling, powerful? And I got answers back like, one day at a time, John, let go and let God, which was information I needed to hear. I needed to hear those things. And it didn't answer my question, what's cunning, baffling, and powerful? When we start each podcast, Marty refers to breaking a pattern of behavior that I know I don't want, and yet I find myself powerless to move to some. No matter how hard I try, I find myself in a pattern of behavior, whether it's codependency, some type of addiction, or avoidant behavior. And one of my avoidant behaviors was being violent in my communication style, like being dismissive or um, threatening,
Sarcastic.
raising my voice to get, yeah, and it was about controlling what was going on. So um, these obstacles that I'm going to present is what I found standing in my way of moving towards what I say I wanted after recognizing where I was at. Like I have a problem with drinking. Okay. So I don't want to drink. Well, I didn't want to not drink, but I didn't want to drink as much. So I wanted to modify it somehow. But over a period of time, I found myself back in this pattern of behavior of drinking all that was available and then going and get more. So, what are the obstacles to me breaking that pattern of behavior? Whether it's alcoholic, workaholic, rageaholic. I didn't have a problem with gambling because I didn't like losing money. I couldn't stand that. Overeaters Anonymous. I was in, I don't know, 10 different 12-step groups, relationships, sex and love addiction. Okay, so these are all patterns that I recognized were detrimental to my relational capacity to maintain and sustain a relationship. I found myself alone and isolated most of the time, and even in relationships, I found myself alone and isolated. But what was staying away? And I call these obstacles. And what I mean by obstacles is, well, the first obstacle I have is what I found standing in my way was the experiences I've had up until I realized I was in a pattern that created the pattern. You know, Einstein said, you cannot solve a problem, alcoholism, rageaholism, workaholic, with the consciousness that created the problem. So what's the first obstacle? My consciousness that created the problem, which is what? My experiences, how I perceive my beliefs, perceptions, and patterns based on those experiences that were locked into my subconscious. As a human being, we all, not just the people in recovery, we all, human being, planet Earth, have this capacity to store our total experience in our memory. And wherever you believe the memory, if you believe it's in the head or the body or some other place, there's a memory source that we have. 9/10 of my experiences have been relegated, and I use that word purposefully, relegated to my subconscious. Now, we're built that way as human beings so that we can complete important tasks in the moment, like food, shelter, clothing. And these are all capacities that we needed, however many years you believe we've been on this planet. Where I find myself in the industrial age, and there's not a whole lot of effort I use in food, shelter, clothing, because I have a house, I have clothes, and I'm well healed. I have my survival needs met pretty much. Um, um, so my experiences have been relegated, 9/10 of them, to the subconscious. Although subconscious, and this is where we hold our trauma. This is where we hold our slights, our humiliations, our ridicule, our pain. And this is a fish hook, the 3 fish hooks right here, which represent trauma. Pre-verbal, nonverbal. There's no words for me to express it. The only way that I know it's there is in the realization of my character defects that came from this experience. Now, for an example, I owned that I was entitled and arrogant. So that's the result of my total experiences. I developed this capacity for arrogance and entitlement. Based on where I came from, based on the pain that I endured from people and all the decisions I made, because all this information, this experience, all of it informs each decision-making process. Now, whether I'm going to have Chinese or Mexican for dinner, probably not a big impact, but who I'm going to relate to, who I'm going to get in relationship with, what job I take, major impact. So I didn't know that the trauma was influencing my choices. An example of that is I took jobs where I was self-sufficient. I could do it myself. I didn't need anybody around me. I was an industrial mechanic, welder. I knew how to do my job. You didn't have to tell me. I'd go do it and then come back and get another job. I was isolated. In fact, as a welder, I had a hood, leathers. You know, if somebody came around I didn't want, I just struck an arc and they laughed. I didn't think about that when I was doing it, but that's the result of a welder. You are self-sufficient. You don't need anybody to tell you. I don't have a boss except for to point out the job, and I know how to do the job. So that was a result of need for isolation or a buffer between me and the people in my life. Okay. So why did I say revel in my character defects? Okay. Once I know what the obstacles are, I can, let me move this screen. I can heal the subconscious by owning the results. Right up here in green, I have complex post-traumatic stress display. Anybody suffering from trauma displays a behavior. Now, we can see that real clearly in veterans. If they're in a combat situation, they come home, they display specific behaviors. Isolation. One of the things, a startle effect, if they hear loud noise, they startle and orient to where the noises come from or drop or whatever they got to do to survive. We can see that that's pertinent. I was, what I mentioned last week is that I was raised in a concentration camp environment. I was held hostage in a violent, coercive, dysfunctional place, and I had no recourse. So, yeah, whatever this behavior is, alcohol works really well for me, Marty. I could drink something and everything would be okay. Everybody's cool. I'm fine. You're fine. Let's talk. Let's laugh. Let's have a good time. Without the alcohol, I was social anxiety. I was stressed. I was wondering what you're thinking of me. I was just inundated. First sip, I can remember the first drink I ever took at 13 years old. I remember that it was a Colt 45 quart bottle. I remember the condensation on the outside of the bottle where it was sitting on the counter, how it felt when I held it up, and when I hit my gullet, oh my God, happy days. Oh my God, this is good stuff. And I had no idea that I was relieving temporarily this stress. And then it became chronic. I became an alcoholic at 39 years old. I had to have my drink to leave the house. I had my drink come home to the house. I was in this pattern of behavior that I said I wanted to break. And I had no recourse. And the harder I tried to break this pattern of behavior, it seemed like the more I would drink. So what are the obstacles? The trauma, my experience of trauma. This created my beliefs, perceptions of myself who I am, worthy, not worthy, and then these patterns of behavior. And I have expectations up here, and this is the standard at which I believed I needed to keep myself, like I should, I have to, I got to. These obstacles was the only thing keeping me from sobriety, and I didn't know it. So if I started looking at myself, which is, this is all about me, it's not about you, that's in me, in my experience, that's manifesting in this behavior. Oh, so if I own the behavior, take it over here to the accountability tree process. And the main key is accountability. And what I mean is the ability to account for where I'm at, blame-free, judgment-free. Oh, the statement is, hi, my name's John. I'm an alcoholic. Blame-free, judgment-free. I remember the first time I said it in a room where there must have been 80 people in that room. Nobody judged me. Nobody blamed me. Nobody said, oh, that was stupid. What's wrong with you? They may have clapped, Marty, I don't know, but I felt this acceptance, and it was like, this is, and I took the breath. I didn't have this process written out the way I did, but I took a breath. That happened to me. I was validated through my own words, through what other people responded to me. And my next thought was, I intend. I didn't use the word I intend, but my thought was, I'm coming back here. This is cool. I don't know what just happened, but I'm coming back, which started my journey of recovery. How did I do it? By owning my character defect. The one I didn't want to admit. Before that, I do drink heavy, but my dad was an alcoholic, and alcoholics are those drunks and wine bottles and the needle in their arm underneath the bridge over there. Go talk to those people. They need I'm cool. When alcohol was destroying me physically and anything I was in relationship to, at that time, it was wife and 2 children. It was completely non-existent because of my seeking relief through addiction. Truth. Oh, and I got at the bottom here, freedom. My thought, I'm coming back, was probably the first intentional thought, proactive, that I had that I can remember in my life. Not that I didn't have proactive thoughts. I had. We move in and out, and we're sentient, but not sentient, but able to relate at certain different times, and then the stress happens or the trigger happens, and I go into a default mode of one of these codependency, addiction, or avoidant behavior. And to give an example of avoidant behavior is my communication style was blunt, violent. It was dismissive. That's where I got arrogant and entitled. So, and then that day I talked to you, which was probably 7 years ago, 7 years ago. Having done this so many times, I saw that this ownership was the way out. So, I can actually say if I'm, and this is where it happened mostly for me, is on the freeway. And I'm driving on the freeway or I'm driving on the road and somebody does something and I'm going, well, that dumbass, character defect. I just one popped out on me. It's still hidden from me. So I go, oh, I'm a dumbass. I own the projection, just the way it came out, because the way it came out is in alignment with that unresolved trauma. Like the military guy dropping at a loud noise. That's it came out of what his trauma was. So if I say this, truth, blame-free, judgment-free, for the purpose of healing. Now, if I say I'm an alcoholic just to beat myself up or to engage you into showing you how bad I am, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm an alcoholic. Oh my God. Yes. The trauma is in the form of a feeling tone. A lot of the trauma that I had stuffed in there, and some still, is pre-verbal, infant. I didn't know how to talk, but I was neglected or left. And it could have been simply somebody walking out of the room when I was hungry. That's life or death situation. If nobody nurtured or soothed me, I stuffed that. When I was coming up, and one of the experts in childhood was Dr. Zeus, and one of the things he said is let the child cry. He'll cry it out. No, that child has no. Pick it up, hold it, soothe it. There's something going on. A child doesn't cry unless there's attention needed somewhere. It could be a pin stuck in her. We don't know. And that in itself, the societally sanctioned treatment of children is trauma inducing. I'm not saying people are bad. I'm not saying people, I am saying it happened. Whatever happened to me coming from my unhealed father and unhealed mother was given to me. I don't mean to blame them. They did the best they could. And I have it in me. And it's manifesting in these character defects. And when I found out and put together, because it was over a period of time, that simple truth, I'm an alcoholic, led me to something different, I want to do that again. And I'm going to find out what else is in there. And it's hidden from me. So one of the things I have on the board, I'm going to move the sign again, is on my projections. Because what I see out there is always true in here, may or may not be true out there. Somebody is dishonest. They may be being dishonest. I may not have heard them right. There's all kinds of things where I perceive them as dishonest and had a trigger. I was triggered. I was screaming, yelling, how could you say that to me? Who do you think I am? All those reaction things that I were used to do. Instead of, you know what? I have the capacity for dishonesty. I have the capacity. Oh my God, I'm a liar. Oh, I felt that one. There's still more in there, Marty.
Yeah.
There's still more in that statement. So I'm gonna do it. I'm a liar. Nice deep breath. That emotion happens. Our bodies know how to do this. Our bodies automatically um, allow these feelings to now move through me so that I can experience them and know that I'm safe. I felt that whatever it was when I said I'm a liar, I intend to be honest. I intend to be loving and kind. Another deep breath. That intent in this self-validating, intentional way went back into the subconscious as a healing tone. Yes, yes, yes. It makes sense that I would lie to keep myself safe. Now, that experience of self-validation, of not beating myself up, of not criticizing myself or blaming you for me lying, is now part of my experience. It was a nurturing moment, which I'm adding that experience, whether I know how to say or articulate what happened. I'm adding an experience of self-validation to my subconscious. Now, my decision-making process is drawing on information that is different, which now means the results change automatically, Marty. Automatic. I didn't have to work at my sobriety. I went to meetings. You can call that work. I wanted to go to meetings. I reveled in going to meetings. It's like it wasn't a job or a chore. There were times I didn't want to go, and I went anyway. And I benefited from staying with like-minded people, other addicts who are looking to do something different, change their lives. One of the things we say in the 12-step is get out of yourself and be there for somebody else. What does that mean? Service work. Well, at first it was setting up the chairs, making coffee, being the literature person, service work. Now it's my life is in service to others. And there's nothing I'd rather be doing. Giving this information to as many people as possible in the shortest amount of time. That's my service to my community. Me being genuine and honest and owning these things and showing people what it looks like and exemplifying what I say instead of saying, I read this in a book somewhere that ought to be good for you. Try that. It might work for you if you're really that bad. So I think we're out of time.
We
I
almost are, but
went to,
I just like to maybe start a wrap up by observing one of the first things I remember hearing you say when I started coming to accountability practice meeting. In fact, I think back when you were facilitating our men's group and before we even called it an accountability meeting,
right.
I don't remember how the question came up, but you would say, I'm here to learn more about myself.
Yes.
I'm at these meetings to learn more about myself. And in my youthfulness in the recovery process, I didn't understand that at all. It's like, no, you're here to help teach us. You're here to help fix us. You're here to help share your wisdom and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was my story and my projection. But
Mm-hmm.
by the time you said I revel in my character defects, I had accumulated enough information to be able to say, I want to know these things so I can get to know myself better, so I can get to the healing quicker.
Yes.
So when what I want to offer to those of you who are watching this and maybe for the first time is that what might initially seem like something we want to stay away from, bad
Yeah.
information about myself, my
Yeah.
tendency to be a liar, my tendency to be arrogant. Arrogance was one of the ones that it took me a long time to be willing to own. But once I owned it, I saw it everywhere. Um,
Yeah.
and once I saw it everywhere, I had the choice to create something different.
Yes.
And so the whole purpose of what I call befriending the obstacles is to, first of all, I want to befriend every part of me. I want to love and accept myself just the way I am, warts and all,
Mm-hmm.
to quote Cromwell.
Yeah.
And so it's like I'm a human
Mm-hmm.
being, so I have warts. I'm a human being, so I have
Mm-hmm.
character defects. Now
Yeah.
that's an AA term of art, and I like to now call them character assets because, or just
Yeah.
even characteristics. I just have characteristics, and
Yeah.
all of these different ways of being comprise my personality, and my personality isn't even who I am. It's the way I present myself to the world and navigate the world, but who I am is much deeper and much more powerful, potent, and beautiful than my personality, and that's true of all of us. And so
Yes.
I never could have said that 10 years ago. In fact, it would have
No.
been a mysterious language to me. I wouldn't have understood it. So,
Right.
as we wrap up here, I want to invite everybody I'd like to remind everybody that we do this work best in group. John and I are having a dialogue and a conversation to try to present these ideas to those of you who are watching or listening. But the experience is really what matters. How do I discover myself in a group setting is the most practical and the quickest way to get there. So we have a number of intentional living meetings every week. There's 4 a week. They're all available on Zoom, different times, different days. The information on how to participate and join one of the meetings will be at the end of the podcast. So if you'd like to check it out, stay until the end and note the Zoom room addresses and feel free to join us. And as always, John,
Yes.
it's a pleasure to learn more, and I appreciate your sharing us why it is that you chose to revel in your character defects. And I choose to do that, and I choose to slavishly imitate you and revel in my own. So
Okay.
thanks a
Very
lot,
good. Thank you.
and we'll see you at the next one.
You got it, Marty. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.